I am thrilled to welcome Aditya Ghosh today to Network Capital. Our mission is to help every person, every organization on their planet build their category of one. And Aditya is definitely someone who has built his category of one in a wide range of industries, be it aviation, hospitality. And most recently, I had the best meal that I've ever had in London at Chorangi, a place that he's curated and designed. And it was just like a phenomenal experience. And then when I started digging in, I stumbled into the fact that, oh, this is Aditya's adventure. And that's why I said, we really want to discuss the career principles of this gentleman. So here we are. Thanks so much for your time, Aditya.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
So, let's just get started by your Sanskrit exam back in school. So you failed a Sanskrit exam, right?
How did you even know that?
Normally, yes. Normally, when we see CEOs and leaders, we think that they have impeccable academic and professional records.
No,
they perhaps
certainly
have,
not me. Certainly not me.
So tell us about that Sanskrit exam and what did that teach you about about the education system and leadership in general?
Oh well, this was in grade 5, and this was I'm ethnically a Bengali. My Hindi is reasonably good now, actually quite good, but in those days I definitely struggled with it, and Sanskrit was even more difficult. And this was the second term exam where I just kind of absolutely failed miserably. And I think that was the first exam that I failed, the test that I failed. So it was very embarrassing and very challenging as a 10-year-old or 9-year-old that I was at that time. And then I kind of said, to myself that I'm going to try to do a better job of it, and I'm going to just kind of focus on it. And then I did. And in the final term, I got 25 out of 25. I think those were the marks. So it was a dramatic U-turn for me, thankfully for the positive. But not that I've maintained it or I've followed it 100% of the time, but what it definitely taught me early on as a 10-year-old is that, things that you are scared of, challenges that you kind of, run away from, if you actually just put your heart and soul into it and you actually focus on it and kind of almost take the bull by the horn, there is every chance that you're going to be able to kind of, beat that fear. And I don't know whether come out victorious or not, but certainly come out less afraid.
Yeah. And I think you, in your writings, in your talks, you've talked about two things that really struck a chord with me. And interestingly, Arunabha, your brother, who we've also hosted on Network Capital, he also mentioned
the much brighter sibling, by the way.
One was on the power of compounding, and the other was on the power of looking inward rather than looking towards the competition to guiding you. So could you tell us about how these two have been important pillars of your leadership, both of your time as a student and as a CEO of companies?
Yeah, it's something that I kind of came to realize more when I was when in my early stages of my career, and more importantly, when I was as the chief executive or leading a large business. And this is something it's a thought that I often share with a lot of my colleagues. The thing is that when we make mistakes, when things don't turn out to be the way we expect them to be, fail an exam, something of that sort, or miss a target. What the instinct is to always look around and beat yourself up and really, really struggle with what other people will say about you, and how others will judge you. And I've come to realize that that's a complete waste of time, because it doesn't help at all. It doesn't help one way or the other. It doesn't help if you are focusing on people who are saying, you did not work hard enough, you did not, you don't deserve it, and you were anyway bound to fail, and you did this wrong and you did that wrong, and how could you, and so on and so forth. And it's also equally bad when somebody turns around and say, hey, don't worry about it, it's all right, there's always a second chance, life is. And neither of those things help you. What actually helps you is to look within and say, you know what could I have done differently? How could I have been better prepared for something like this? If I had to turn the clock back, what are the things that I would have done differently? And that then allows you to kind of approach this whole thing in a very different way, and the next time around you come out better prepared, and so on and so forth. I've I've heard this saying that failure is my friend, and so on and so forth. Failure is never my friend. But having said that, I've also realized that it's a constant companion. And therefore, from those failures, from those mistakes, you realize that this is what I should have done differently, and you come back and approach it in a better manner the next time around.
Yeah. And you've taken these two principles throughout your career, right? Which has been really adventurous, from law, no business degree, to actually, becoming CEO of multiple companies. And I think that based on my analysis of, how you've approached these industries, the power of compounding is something that jumps out over and over again. Yeah. And I once heard you, we didn't know each other at that time, telling the story of rice in a chessboard, of how this person went and then instead of asking the king for half of his real estate, he said that I just want equivalent to a grain of rice. And I thought that, this person really believes and internalizes the power of compounding. So has your career been compounding step by step? Has there been a clear plan towards your career, or it is a bit of serendipity and a bit of planning?
I think a lot of serendipity in some ways. Actually, that rice story, frankly, I mean, I heard about it from a colleague of mine, Anita, who used to work for me with me at IndiGo and then at OYO. She's the one who told me about this rice story, actually. And
maybe you can tell it. All our listeners may not know of it.
Yeah, actually, it's about this. If I remember it correctly, she says it, but she tells it better. If I remember correctly, it's like the king asks him, what do you want? And you can have whatever you want. And people are expecting him to ask for land or jewelry or wealth or whatever it is. And this person says, all I want is that I want a grain of rice to begin with on a chessboard, and then for every square, just double that grain of rice. And then, of course, when you do the math of it, you have enough to feed you for many years. And the probably the takeaway from that is that irrespective of what you are doing at that point in time, right? Whatever be the work that you're doing, you may not know how it's going to finally translate to that big dream of yours that you might have. But every step along the way, it helps you to get to whatever you want to get to, provided, again, you put your heart and soul into whatever is the job that you're doing. In my case, I started off my career in a law firm called J. Sagar Associates, and I was 21 years old at that time, and as an intern. And I heard the rice story much later, and it made sense to me, because whether it was as an intern, like, I don't know, photocopying papers and putting files together and getting prepared for meetings and making notes and things like that, or for that matter, as the career progressed, whatever I did, someone somewhere, and this is important because I don't want to talk about how good or bad I was at my job, but I realized that someone somewhere, senior, someone more powerful, someone with a lot more power to make a change in my life, noticed me and said, you know what, I'm going to give this guy an opportunity. And from there on, came the next opportunity and the next opportunity and so on and so forth, right? So whether it was Mr. Sagar at the firm, or whether it was Rahul Bhatia, who was my first shareholder founder at IndiGo, or Rakesh, who was the co-founder of IndiGo, or whether it is Ritesh or William, or today Vinay and Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who are Vinay Dubey and Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who are my partners at Akasa, the new airline. Somewhere, someone along the way said that, you know what, there is something in this guy, and let's give him a chance, or let's give him that opportunity. I think, and I think that's important because, a lot of times I work a lot with youngsters, as you know, whether it was at the airline or in the restaurant business, hotels business, retail, the social impact work that I do at Seva. I can sense that at times, people get impatient, right? And people think that, how is this helping my career? And I want to be at a certain place, and I want to drive this car, and I want to have this home, and I want to have this wealth, or I want to, be a billionaire, or whatever it might be. We lose track of the steps in the ladder. We lose track of those squares in the chessboard. And I think that's kind of, very important not to lose track of.
Yeah. If you were to venture a guess, these wide range of people, from William to Ritesh to Mr. Jhunjhunwala, what have they seen in you? Are you a deep generalist? Are you somebody who's able to get results? I have a theory, but I'm very interested in yours.
So my most candid, honest answer, right, Utkarsh, is that I've never had the courage to go and ask them that, because it might make them rethink their decision. So if I can hazard a guess, and really this is hazarding a guess, and I'm not trying to sound cool about it. I think if I hazard a guess, it would be that um, I do try to take a lot of interest in whatever is the role and responsibility that has been given to me, right? I live in the constant fear that I should not be seen as irresponsible, or I should not be seen as somebody who did not put in their heart and soul into it. Not that I don't get lazy, not that I don't slip up, not that I don't procrastinate, but it is that sort of fear that is there in your gut, that kind of helps you and keeps you motivated. Since you talked about my grade 5, I'll tell you something very interesting. I don't think I've said this anywhere in public before. Grade 1, right? Class 1. I remember my class teacher, Mrs. Davis, I was in 1B. And in my report card as a 6-year-old, she had written, Aditya has a great sense of responsibility. I had no idea what that word meant. And the reason I remember the story is I remember in the parent-teacher meeting, me asking my parents, what does that mean? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And this is funny. I was 6 years old at that time.
I think this responsibility has guided you and taken you in a wide range of industries. In my book, I write about the concept of luck surface area. And luck surface area to me means doing great things and telling lots of people, or figuring out a way to scale, your insight and knowledge. How did that happen for you? How did you become quote unquote lucky? And what does luck mean to you, if anything?
Look, I think everyone is lucky. I truly believe that, and I say this with a lot of confidence, because I grew up as a teenager thinking, I'm really unlucky. I am fat, and I'm dark skinned, and there are friends who have a car, and all the things that the teenage agony that you have, and I don't have any girlfriends, all of the things. But over a period of time, I've realized that everyone is lucky. What that means is that life presents opportunities to everyone. You know, uh, it's a question of whether we have the willingness, whether we have the energy, whether we have the enthusiasm, the patience, um, to to try to kind of make the most out of that opportunity. Um, and I think where I figured that I am getting lucky is when I by chance took a few opportunities very seriously, and because of the focus, like in the Sanskrit exam, something turned out to be a success. I figured, hey, you know what? It's now kind of working in my favor. But when I look back, it was only because I was focusing on it more than I focused on it before. I'll give you an example of this. This is in the fall of 1997, 2 or 3 months into my internship at the firm, right? And and what happened was that after the first 3 months, I started getting complacent. Okay, and I started spending more time on phone calls, and slipping on deadlines, or kind of taking life a little bit more easy than I was at the beginning of the internship. And I remember that my then boss, Mr. Rajinder Kumar, we used to call him RK. RK kind of pulled me aside one day and sat me down and he said, what are you doing? And I first didn't understand. And he says, you've got this great opportunity, and what are you doing? Like, why are you suddenly distracted and things like that? RK was a very quiet sort of a person, and he never raised his decibel level ever. But those few sentences kind of made me realize, hey, whoa, let's hold on to the reins again. Come on, let's get serious. And I think it's these times when I have focused on it, I've realized that I'm getting lazy. I realize I'm getting distracted. I realize that I'm not focusing enough on it, and I corrected myself. That's when things started working in my favor, or I started getting lucky, right? And then the times I've failed, or the times that the outcome has not been what I had thought it would be, when I look back, I think that maybe I did not put in enough effort behind it. The point that you're making, Utkarsh, is also important, that then when you take that and then you spread that and you help people realize that they have similar luck, similar opportunity, and to make the most of it, and you see a sea change in other people, you see a sea change in an organization. I think that it's a great feeling. It's a cocaine rush, not that I've ever had cocaine, but I'm assuming that's what really sort of gives you the impetus, gives you the enthusiasm to keep going more.
Yeah, absolutely. You briefly touched upon fitness. I think you're considered perhaps the fittest CEO in the country or the region. So that also demonstrates a very serious commitment or curiosity. Can you tell us briefly, before we march into the other section of this masterclass, what does fitness mean to you, and how did you go from being somebody who, in his own words, was unhealthy and uncomfortable with the way he was, to your perception today?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that question, because it's important. Look, especially growing up in India, at least the time that I was, there's a perception that kids who are fat are supposed to be fat, and there is some genetically, there is something wrong with it. And kids who are supposed to be fit are just happen to be fit, and they'll always be fit. And there is very little combination of both. There are a few kids, of course, who challenge that and have done it successfully. My brother's wife, Meghna, you should speak to her sometime. She's one of those. She's a Rhodes Scholar, Harvard MBA, also a ex-Asian Games swimmer. But those are, rare animals. So, so growing up, I used to play a lot of tennis. I was very active, but I was always overweight. And when I was involved in starting IndiGo, my weight just kept going up, and it was and I looked at myself once in a picture, and I was just like so uncomfortable and ashamed and things like that, and body image issues or whatever it is. But I was not I wouldn't say I was at all an underconfident person. Confidence has not been something that I've struggled with. But having said that, what changed was, from that moment when I saw that picture, I was 86 kilos. And this is also almost about the same time that I was taking on the IndiGo CEO role, by the way, just coincidentally. And 5.5 months later, I was down 18 kilos.
Wow.
And I ran a half marathon. I went from 86 kilos to 68 kilos, and I ran a half marathon in 2 hours, 4 minutes. But what it helped me do, and that is what, this was in 2009, February of 2009, but what it has helped me do for the next 12 years after that is, when you break through that wall, when you climb that mountain in your head, you realize that there is a lot that you can do which you thought was not possible. The second thing is, my fitness journey has not only given me this confidence of taking on challenges, but more importantly, also, especially, I do a fair amount of weight training, and then, I used to run earlier, I play tennis, I do some amount of wall climbing, rock climbing with my son. I'm a certified scuba diver now, and all kinds of other things like that. What it also helped me is to focus, because especially when you're weight training and you're doing things like that, or you're like, hanging off a cliff or something of that sort, or even for that matter in a game of tennis and you're trying to score a point, and your eyes are only focused on that tennis ball, the rest of the world just has to disappear. And that then kind of helps you take that and translate that almost one-to-one into your work life. And I think that's when these two things started merging. And I strongly encourage, whether you are struggling with weight or you're thin and you think you're fit, I strongly encourage you to experiment and play with this thing, and it'll open up aspects of your life, aspects of your personality that you don't think are possible. And it's not all to do with vanity. It has actually very little to do with vanity at the end of the day. It is a mind game. You're actually playing against yourself. You're competing against yourself. And I think that's been an extremely, extremely interesting experience for me.
You're fascinating. So the first 5.5 months where you lost 18 kgs and ran a marathon, you also were working intensely.
Yes, I was also walking my first few steps as the chief executive of IndiGo.
Yeah. So you mentioned something really interesting, that this mindset helps you deliver at multiple levels. It makes you break through the wall, break through the barriers, and push and perform at a greater level. So let's start with, how did the CEO opportunity of IndiGo come to fore? And it's a really difficult industry. In business school, we constantly are made to be wary of the airline industry for all the challenges it puts people through. So what were you thinking, and coming in, what did you really want to do? You transformed the industry in some of the hardest years. It must not have been easy or simple to figure out.
Yeah, look, it's a very tough business. It is also a very crazy market. Um, and uh, and and I came into this business. Um, I came to run the airline in 2008 when the world was melting down, and the fuel had touched $146 a barrel, economic recession, the global recession, and so on and so forth.
You
Um,
picked your timing well.
yes, I clearly seem to be a sucker for punishment. So, um, let me first answer the question how I came about to doing the role. So my involvement with IndiGo goes back to when it was at that proverbial cocktail napkin stage, and when Rahul started thinking about the airline. I started talking to him about it. We went and spoke to Rakesh about it. Rakesh took a couple of years to say yes to it. So my journey at Indigo starts from there, and then the aircraft order and so on. But I never ran the airline. I was on the board, and I used to work closely with the two, the CEO and the COO who we had invited from the United States, Bruce and Steve. But in 2008, as things were melting down, Indigo was in crisis. We had not made money. We had very little money left on our balance sheet. Um, the Bruce was going back. Steve was going back. The people culture was not something we could be proud of. There were very, very large competitors and fuel and recession and all of those things. And in those days, Rahul and Rakesh, I think, had a conversation, and Rahul came up to me and said that, Aditya, you should come and run the airline. I was like, I mean, that's a really bad idea. I mean, I mean, this is just, I mean, it's just some kind of a joke or, and and uh, and he said, no, I mean, seriously, both Rakesh and I think that you should come and run the airline. Like, no way. I mean, I've never been to business school. I've never had a business role in my life. I, um, I, I mean, I, this is the most volatile, business of the group. There are there are over 1,000 employees who are employed here, and even at a personal level, right? I mean, I was a lawyer. If I'm going to fail at this, nobody's going to hire me as a lawyer back. Nobody's going to hire me as a manager. We had two tiny infant kids. I mean, it was betting my whole life and my whole career. So this conversation went back and forth with Rahul for for uh, uh, for a couple of months, and we used to take these long walks outside the Indigo office in the courtyard. And But finally, like Rahul said, "Look, Aditya, I mean, I'm here. You're not going anywhere. Fine. If you don't like it, you can come back and be a general counsel that you are." And and I said, "Okay, fine, Rahul. I'll do it till March." So this was summer of 2008. He said, "March when?" And I said, "March of 2009." He said, "No, let do it for a year and a half, and then we'll see." And I said, "Yeah. In the meantime, let's hire a real CEO, and then then we'll do this." And I remember on the eve of when I was coming in, I sent a SMS in those days, SMS to Rahul saying, "Rahul, I'll give it my best shot." And within seconds, Rahul replied back saying, "That's all I'm looking for there." And I think that gave me the confidence to come in. And how I survived and how things turned around over the next 9 or 10 months, and we broke even 9 months later, turned the airline around. We didn't have to look back, fortunately. That I think the credit goes to the leadership team of Indigo that I was surrounded by, and literally the 1,000 other people who were working in the airline. And I don't say this lightly. Firstly, why the leadership team? For two reasons. One, every one of my direct reports was older to me. Every one of my direct reports was far more, far more experienced in their area of work, and definitely in the airline business. Our head of flight operations had become a pilot before I was born. Our head of engineering had passed out of IIT Delhi before I was born. Our head of in-flight had become a flight attendant when I was 5 years old, right? Our CFO had become a chief chartered accountant when I was in grade 5 or grade 4, right? What amazing self-confidence and generosity of heart that they must have had to accept me as their leader. The second is that I was ever curious. So to be able to patiently explain and answer my questions and sometimes take my guidance and work together. That's why they played a huge role in what we were able to do. Why the other 1,000 people, right? And then the next 20,000 people. Of course, the airline business is such, it just doesn't matter who the chief executive is. And therefore, it's these thousands of people who made me look good for 15 years of my life and make me look good even today. And I'm ever deeply grateful for that. When I look at an airplane and it's standing at the airport, here's what it reminds me of each time. Here's a $100 million airplane full of revenue-paying passengers, experienced pilots, courtiers, experienced flight attendants. Maintenance has done its job. Engines are spooled up. ATC is given clearance. But if that marshaller does not come with those 2 table tennis bat type of things and waves the right signals, I, as the chief executive of the airline or the president of the airline, cannot move that airplane back. I cannot move that airplane out. So it's a deep reminder how in the airline business, especially, and many other businesses, everyone is an equal. We just have different roles to play. Yeah. If you're able to internalize that, you realize that it's because of those tens of thousands of other people that we become who we are, and I got the success and the attention, and the reason that you're talking to me is them.
Thank you for sharing this. This was really insightful to get a flavor of this opportunity and how it came to you. Tell us about some of the contrarian or slightly challenging decisions that you had to take at IndiGo, and also tell us the thought process and the dilemma behind it. One thing that I observed when I spoke to people or speak to people is that the brand of IndiGo and the experience of IndiGo was clearly, a few notches above the other players. And I'm sure that this didn't just happen.
Yes. I think, the contrarian view actually comes out of focus on a few things that really work. And even at Akasa today, as we are building out a new airline, we're doing the same thing.
That you say, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's new. Yeah.
Thank you. And you pick a few things and you really focus on that. And what's contrarian is you say no to everything else. And that's very, very hard. It's very hard because of 2 reasons. One, people always constantly talk about innovation, right? And they constantly want you to try out the next new thing, right? So it takes a lot of discipline to be able to say no to something and no to 10 new ideas. The second is that human beings, our brain is wired as such, is that we're constantly, getting distracted by the next new thing. But our attention goes to whatever walked into the room new.
The shiniest new object.
That's right. Yeah. So therefore, it takes a lot of discipline to say no to this, no to that, no to a separate check-in line, no to a frequent flyer line, no to a frequent flyer points, no to hot food, and no to fancy cars and, all kinds of things like that, right? And just stay disciplined on what really matters. But one of the larger decisions was back in 2008-9 itself. Our market share went from about 8-9% to something like 14%, and it was still not making money. And then we decided that we are going to actually cut back and reduce market share, but focus on profitability. And market share dropped from 14 to 11%, but we started making money. Now, when your airline is shrinking and the newspapers are telling you every day that the airline is shrinking and you're becoming smaller in terms of market share, and you're still chasing profitability, but that's not yet happened, it takes a lot of courage and discipline to be able to do that. And I think that was one. And then there were many others, but this was one where it's really out there, in the public domain, and everybody's saying things about you. And in the airline business, of course, everybody has an opinion. And I think that is one of the best examples that I can give you, which is a hard, difficult decision to take.
Yeah, filtering the signal from noise, ignoring the media hype versus what you should do, saying no to things even when they seem tempting. These are things that everyone struggles with day in, day out. I was wondering, Aditya, did you have an outsider's advantage? Is there such a thing as an outsider who has?
I think there's of course a penalty to it. You don't know anything about the business,
earn your credibility,
innards of the business. You've got to learn every day. But the outsider's advantage is that you are able to question things, or you attempt to understand things at a very basic 101 sort of practical logic sort of way. Why is this happening? Why do we do this? Why are we not doing that? And that doesn't mean you have to do it, but at least it forces you to keep questioning it till you get a sort of satisfactory answer. And I think that's the outside in advantage that you have. Absolutely. But I dare say also that of course it has to come with a fair measure of humility. I mean, you cannot just go in and say, no, this is the way it's I want to do this just because it's not been done before. It doesn't matter, that kind of a thing. So you've got to have that humility to deeply understand why something is happening, but at the same time have the courage to try out something new that may not have been done before or thought of.
Yeah, I love your why questions. Once I heard you ask, why should we scale, or why does one want to scale? Yes. And you've been a part of industries where I think scale has been really important. And now you're doing something at one level, which is hyperscale. And at one level, you have Chorangi, which is one restaurant. Yeah. One restaurant, but perhaps the best Calcutta experience around the world. So tell me, what does scale mean to you? And on one hand, we look at IndiGo, Oyo, Akasa, Fabindia, hyperscale. And the other end, you have Chorangi. I love it, but I want to understand the thought process.
Yeah. No, thank you. Look, especially in today's world, where everybody is trying to show growth, everybody is trying to scale up, because that's what takes you to the next round of funding and so on and so forth. I think it's very easy to lose track of why you're trying to scale. And I think the way I kind of think about it is that, does scaling up bring you efficiency, cost efficiency? Does scaling up bring you, access to customers that you do not have otherwise? Does scaling up bring you, some ability to bring in, better technology? Does scaling up bring you, the ability to take your product in the same consistent manner to, millions of people or thousands of people? There has to be a reason for scaling up other than saying, I'm just bigger, other than just saying, I now have access to more money. There has to be some purpose to that scaling up, right? So in the case of the airline business, or case of a hotels business like Oyo, scaling up is important because, especially the airline business, the scale gives you the cost efficiency dramatic.
Yeah.
In the case of Oyo, it is that there are literally millions, if not hundreds of thousands of unorganized guest houses and experiences around the world, which can then be brought into some kind of a consistent franchise. So the scale helps you to create that consistent experience. The scale helps you bring about efficiency. In the case of Chorangi, it is a very curated product where I think, at least certainly at this stage, we may scale years from now, but at this stage, each customer who walks in is extremely important. And that the taste of that food, that experience, should be something that people should walk away from. I really and thank you for those compliments. I'm going to share them with my team at Chorangi and my colleagues at Chorangi, and especially Anjan, who's my partner there. It is so great to hear that someone who did not know me went there and just enjoyed that experience, every dish or everything, the decor, whatever it is, as much as somebody who said, you know what, I just blindly fly this airline because I just know what I'm going to get. So if you do not have, if someone does not have a clear sort of answer to why scaling up is important, and by scaling up why we will not start fraying at the edges, that's, please don't go ahead and do it. Because today, if I take Chorangi, if Anjan and I take Chorangi and build 5 of them around the world, our experience is going to fray because this is just too new. We will not have the systems. We will not have to. We will not be able to do the same type of experience in San Francisco and Dubai and New York and as in London. Someday we might be able to, but certainly not today. And therefore, I don't think we have a compelling answer to why we should scale up, other than saying we've got restaurants around the world and you get known and you get written about. That's not a good enough reason.
Yeah. Every aspect of the Chorangi experience was personalized. I had gone with a person who's not Indian, my
Yes.
and she had she's compelled to go to Calcutta now because of an experience like that in London. And she obviously, she will see this masterclass, but she doesn't know your past leadership experiences. But I think she would still wonder, and many people would wonder, why did he set up Chorangi? Is it the expression of a curiosity, a passion project? What was the drawing board conversation of Chorangi like?
So I have to give credit to Anjan, who is, Anjan Chatterjee, who runs Specialty Restaurants. It's a large listed company based in F&B and restaurants. Anjan and I have been friends for a very long time. So if anything, 99% of the credit of Chorangi should go to Anjan, and the balance 1% I'm riding his coattails. I think we were having a meal some years ago at one of his restaurants. And as he puts it, there are a lot of wines down, although I don't drink. So, and at that time, this idea of taking the cuisine, taking it overseas, doing a restaurant overseas, and especially London, because it's just such a food capital of the world. I mean, you can barely ever have a bad meal in London, and the dinner ended, and Anjan really tells me that he thought that I was just generally chatting. But 2 or 3 days later, I think I started messaging him and started pushing him that we've got to bring this idea to reality. And that dream has become a reality now. But if you have to ask me why I did it, I mean, Anjan did it because, this is his restaurant. He's in the restaurant business. He's like the doyen of the restaurant business in India. Why I did it is that, first of all, I think there is definitely an opportunity, right? There's a huge gap in the market. There is no real Calcutta Bengali food restaurant in London, which is surprising, but it's true. The second is Indian food is associated primarily with North Indian food and then South Indian food.
Yeah.
Right. And that too, food from Punjab and Tamil Nadu, right? So we are such a large, diverse country. There is Parsi food, there is Bengali food, there is Maharashtrian food, there's Gujarati food. I mean, there is just so many different wonderful cuisines out of India. The food out of the Northeast and part of India, Rajasthan. So there are these gaps in the market. The third is that, Bengali cuisine is a very complex cuisine. It's not a simple food to make. And most people, I think, have shied away from it because it is so complex. And that kind of brought about the challenge. Then there were some other fun aspects to it, in the sense that, I hope many of our listeners will go to Chorangi someday, or at least look up the Instagram handle or whatever it is. You would have seen, Utkarsh, when you went there, it doesn't look like a typical Indian restaurant.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And that was the other thing we wanted. We were like, we wanted to be an international experience with great food out of Calcutta. But it doesn't have to have red tablecloth with, 2 Natrajas and a bell and dark and, all of that.
Yeah.
It can be a really refreshing experience, which is bright and vibrant and and at the same time,
the walls, the floors,
exactly,
the windows, every aspect of it. I was a very proud Indian, showing it around to somebody who's not Indian. Yeah.
So I think for me, the reason comes down to, okay, we took something which was a hard thing to do, and hopefully we got off to a good start. I like detail-oriented things, so this has been fun.
Yeah. No, we'll most certainly attach the Instagram handle and other social media handles, and we'll host a bunch of meetups there. We have offline chapters all around the world. Today it's in London, Chorangi, but I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of those. But I know that you will be thinking of scale and design all along.
Yes. Absolutely.
Aditya, are you somebody who enjoys multitasking? Do you enjoy doing two different things at the same time?
Very much so. Very much so. Today, I'm starting a new airline. I'm doing Chorangi. I work a lot with the self-employed Women's Association Seva, which is the largest women's trade union in India. I am the chairperson of all the social enterprises there. I do work with unicorns like Lenskart. There are a bunch of different things. I'm on the board of Fabindia and Oyo. There are a bunch of different things that I do. And I've now come to the stage where I can very confidently say that I like it. I think for a few years, I shied away from it. And I said, what will people say? You need to be focused on a few things and so on and so forth. But I've realized that I've got comfortable with the fact that I'm a multi-dimensional personality. I like those different dimensions of mine. I like my fitness along with my social impact work as much as I like starting an airline or working at a restaurant. But it requires planning. It requires careful thought. Somebody recently asked me a very interesting question. She asked me, "What's your relationship with time?" I thought it was
that is a great question.
Cool question. So time and I have a very interesting relationship, I guess. But I think I do enjoy doing multiple things. Otherwise I get very bored. I get very impatient. At the same time, I'm also acutely aware that I hope I don't do a hash job of 5 different things.
Yeah.
So
I think the key is that taking energy from one dimension of life to the other.
Taking energy, taking experiences, sharing them, learnings from various aspects. I think that's important.
Right. So are you able to, what is your relationship with time? How are you able to juggle your day, week, month, year, etc.?
So I do get I think Jeff Bezos calls it overscheduled. I do get overscheduled at times. But where I come ahead and when I do it well, why I do it well is that making sure that I'm able to compartmentalize my thinking. And the second is that, do I have trusted colleagues and team members that I can rely upon in various aspects of those things. So and even in the places that I'm involved in today, each one of those places have excellent partners who I'm so proud to be and privileged to be partnering with. And I also have really committed, passionate colleagues who keep me within the straight and narrow, keep me focused, and play a big role in what I'm doing.
Fascinating. Just like last bit before we open it up for the final few minutes of questions, I'm very curious to know what a conversation at your household looks like today and what it looked like when you're growing up. I know your brother for many years, but you for less time. So I'm very fascinated by how both of you built your respective tribes and how did you learn from your respective mentors and from each other, perhaps.
Yeah, look, my brother and I are almost opposite personalities. I'm the lazy, procrastinating type, and he's the highly disciplined, focused kind of a guy. I mean, growing up was irritating. Like, we would come back from a dinner or an outing from somewhere, and I remember this story. Like, he must have been, I don't know, he must have been 5 or 6 years old. So I must have been 8 or 9. And it was summer vacations. And our parents had taken us out for a movie and dinner, and then we came back. And it was, I distinctly remember it was like some 11 o'clock at night. And I'm half asleep. I'm dying to go to bed, right? And I suddenly see he used to have a study desk next to our bed. And this 5-year-old has started doing some writing on some copy with a pencil. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and like my parents are also like, what are you doing? He's like, no, ma'am said you have to do 1 page of handwriting every day. And I'm like, oh God, just go to sleep. Because of you, I will now be in trouble because, So, but he is that kind of a guy. He's very conscientious. But look, I've been super proud of him. He's very super inspiring, even though he's younger to me. But the conversations at home, frankly, are not about professional successes at all. Our parents, whether it was both my mother and father, were always that, you have to work hard, study, play, but more than anything else, you have to be a good human being. You have to be a good human being. This was something that was kind of drilled into us. So we were scolded by my mother for not studying or being lazy or whatever it is, and the most of the scolding came to me, not to him. But having said that, it was all about, are you helping out at home? Are you, if there are guests coming, are you serving water? And are you, helping with setting up the dinner table? Are you offering water to somebody who knocked at the door? Are you being a good person? Are you being respectful to elders? It was really simple things like that, which were extremely powerful. And I think even today, that's been the tone. Of course, I'm extremely proud of what his achievements are. His wife Meghna is another. She's a co-founder. She's a co-founder of Slurp Farm, which is another organic foods FMCG business, which is really doing well. We're so proud of her. My wife Manvi, who is a phenomenal mother to the children, and she used to be a professional earlier. So it's none of it is to do with professional success, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. Last question. What is it the same thing with your kids? What do you tell them? And what advice, or most common advice do you have for young professionals or startup folks who meet you?
Yeah. So our kids, of course, have a mind of themselves. And they're good kids. They're indisciplined in the way that, okay, their bed will not be made or something of that sort, but nothing really bad or nothing, they're good, very conscientious kids. Of course, and so is my brother's daughter. I think definitely the credit goes to their mother, and and so on and so forth. But I think in terms of what I tell them is the same thing. What I think I learned from my parents. Not that they're listening to me too much, but what I tell my other younger colleagues is primarily to again just do two things: put your heart and soul into whatever is being the opportunity that you have, and the second more important thing is be young and enthusiastic. Don't be young and impatient.
Young and enthusiastic.
Yeah, because I think things will come. It will come over a period of time, and even if they don't come the way you expect them to be, it is going to be a learning process. It's going to be a learning experience. I think that's what kind of is what I always say. And something that I keep saying is just chase your dreams. Just chase your dreams. The personal dreams, not the professional dreams. So chase your dreams. Sending your parents on a holiday, sending your children to the right school, making sure your siblings get the right education, whatever is your deeply personal dream, playing the guitar, acting in a movie. Once you start chasing those personal dreams, you realize that your professional successes only help you there. They only help you get closer to that personal dream. So yeah, that's what
I love that. I really love that point. The purchase your personal dream. With eyes and heart fully open. Aditya, this was such a delight. Thank you so very much for spending time with us. We do have a couple of minutes left, so I just want to pause and check if there are any live questions that anybody wants to pose.
Utkarsh, there's one in the chat that Swagata had asked, which is
okay. Yeah, sure.
How did you manage to get your point across in case of a disagreement? I think she was referring to when you were talking about working with people much more senior than you at IndiGo.
I think it's a combination of, first of all, being respectful for the years of experience that they bring in, but also being able to present your argument or present your point of view with logic. And I've been again fortunate that yes, there are many times we've had disagreements, but I have gone along with them when I've said that, okay, fine, let's give it a shot. If we fail, we fail, but we'll learn from it. And they have gone along with me when I've been able to kind of present a logic and said, let's give this a try and let's see. I've been fortunate that none of them came around and said, no, this is the only way to be done. Unless they logically explained to me, Aditya, this is why it's done it this way. And I said, yeah, okay, I didn't think of it that way, kind of thing. So I think it's a question. It's having the arrogance to question the past, but also the respect to learn from the past.
Like Chorangi, reinventing it, right? Taking the best. Well, thank you so much, Aditya. I know you're supremely busy and things at home also. I wish everyone well. Really appreciate your time. And thanks to everyone who joined. We're going to make it live and attach the link of Chorangi so that lots and lots of people check it out.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that you guys are able to continue to do the great work that you're doing, and because it's going to help just so many people. So I wish you just all the best. Thank you.
We treasure your support and leadership. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
See you. Bye.